Scene 4, I know it seems like we're never going to finish Hamlet. We're never going to finish Hamlet. I'm actually going to back us up just a little bit. Act 3, Scene 4, Hamlet's long speech beginning on line 54. I'm not going to go through it line by line. But in that speech, he kind of lays it all out for his mother. Okay? Remember, he's gone up to her room because Rosencrantz and Guildenstern said she wanted to talk to him. And then I think Polonius also says something to that effect. While there, he accidentally kills Polonius. And the queen wants to know, what is wrong with you? She asks line 53. I mean, what act that roars so loud and thunders in the index? And he says, look on this picture and on this. Apparently has a picture of his dead father when he was alive, and has a picture of Claudius. And he says, compare the two. And we are supposed to understand by comparison, and I know I keep picking on these actors, but there's a reason, that the one is like Chris Hemsworth, Hamlet Sr., okay, older, and the other is like, not Liam Hemsworth, but if you're not aware of this, there's a third Hemsworth brother. He's not an actor. He doesn't look like the other two. If I remember right, he's kind of shorter and punchy. Okay? So, Hyperion, the god of the sun, before Apollo, to a satyr. I mean, and he goes on and on and on. And in fact, he says, line 71, what judgment would step from this to this? How could you leave this to jump into bed with this? Okay? He says, since sure you have, else could you not have motion. But what does he mean by that? Surely you're still alive. But he doesn't mean that literally. He means it metaphorically. You have something that moves you. Okay? But sure that sense is apoplect, for madness would not err, nor sense to ecstasy was ne'er so thralled, etc., etc. So, O shame, where is thy blush? He's trying to, as Hamlet said, the purpose of playing is to hold that mirror up to her and say, you should be ashamed, Mom. Rebellious hell, if thou canst mute in a matron's bones, to flaming youth let virtue be as wax, and melt in her own fire. Hamlet, speak no more. Why? You got me. It worked. She says, thou turnst mine eyes into my very soul. Normally our eyes do what? They look outwards. She is turned inward. Okay? She sees her rotten soul. And there I see such black and grained spots as will not leave their taint. The soul should be pure. Okay? She says, I see that it isn't. It is spotted. And they, the spots, will not leave their taint. They will not remove themselves. Hamlet, nay, but to live in the rank sweat of an enseamed bed, stewed in corruption, honeying and making love over the night. And all the terms Hamlet is using there are terms of sex, okay? Rank sweat of an enseamed, your gloss for enseamed, which is around 92 or so. Loaded with grease, greased. Yeah, but I think Hamlet, because of the sound of the word, also is implying semen, an enseamed bed. There's a one of those hidden investigative journalist kind of things, a couple of years back, actually, a long time back, 10 or 15 years ago. And it was about hotels and hotel rooms. And it involved this journalist going into hotel rooms of varying levels, you know, Motel 6 up to Marriott's and Hyatt Regencies and stuff. And going in with one of those lights that shows body fluids. Turn off the light, go up to the comforter, and it was like a Jackson Pollock painting. I mean, it was just blech, disgusting. In all of them. It wasn't the dives only. It was the $300, $400 a night hotel rooms where they weren't changing the bed linens necessarily every night. Okay? That's the idea Hamlet's getting at. Stewed in Hamlet's day, in Shakespeare's day, stews was another word for brothels. Okay? Stewed, broveled, if you want, in corruption, honeying and making love over them. Stop, she says. These words like daggers enter in my ears. No more, sweet Hamlet. Now, what did the ghost tell Hamlet not to do? Exactly what he's doing. He said, leave your mother alone. Leave her to heaven. I think Hamlet kind of thinks, you know, I'm gonna not push her along a little bit. Okay? A murderer and a villain. Well, why doesn't he stop? Because he's on a roll, man. He is. Why? Where's it coming from? Do you ever see Japanese filmmaker? He does animated films. No. Spirited Away.
Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, it's Studio Ghibli, but
Miyazaki.
Yeah, Miyazaki. In Spirited Away, there's this thing that eats everything, and there's this other scene where it kind of is purified, and it's just. That's what Hamlet's doing. Go back to our first scene where Hamlet talks with Gertrude and Claudius. And what does he say when his mother, why seems it so particularly with thee? Seems, madam? And he talks about outward show, and he says, I have that within which. Well, this is that within which. He's finally giving voice to it. What do people say? My opinion, all too much in our society. You should do with your feelings. You should express them. Well, Hamlet's a good kind of dramatic model of bottling it all up. Okay? But here, bottle cap is popped off. And he can't stop himself. Something will stop him just very briefly. A murderer and a villain. A slave that is not 20th part the tithe of your precedent Lord. Tithe, Old Testament idea, 10%. The idea of giving 10% of what you earn back to God. He says, Claudius isn't what? A 20th of a 10%. I don't remember what that works out to, but it's like, it's not 1/1000th, it's like 1/10,000th, I think. In other words, he's nothing compared to Hamlet Sr. No more, and the ghost enters. The king of shreds, he just can't stop. I mean, he's got to get it all out. Why? This wound has been festering. And Hamlet sees the ghost. What would your gracious figure? In other words, why are you here? And she's like, who's he talking to? Alas, he's mad. Do you not come, your tardy son to chide, that lapse in time and judgment? Oh, I know why you're here, because I still haven't killed Claudius. Do not forget. This visitation is but to whet thy almost blunted purpose. What does it mean to whet? It's not like to drink. It's to sharpen. That's why he says thy blunted purpose. Okay? If you have a knife, if you have a sword, you use a whetstone to sharpen it. That's not a wet stone. It's W-H-E-T. Okay? He's saying, I'm here to do what? Oh, shut up, Siri. Focus your attention, Hamlet. But he also says, but look, amazement on thy mother sits. What does it mean by amazement? You push her too far, Hamlet, what's going to happen? What happens to Ophelia? She goes crazy. I mean, she goes literally crazy. Out of her mind, crazy. He's saying, don't push your mother too far. Step between her and her fighting soul. Conceit and weakest body, strongest words. Speak to her, Hamlet. How is it with you, lady? How you doing, Mom? Pretty sharp shift from what he was saying before. How's it with you, Hamlet? Who are you talking to? Whereon do you look? On him. Look you, how pale he glares, his form and cause conjoined. To whom do you speak thus? Do you see nothing there? Yeah, I see nothing. You didn't hear anything. Just us. Well, him, look, there he goes. My father. This is the very coinage of your brain. You are crazy. Okay? Notice, this is not Hamlet putting on an antic disposition. How do we know? Stage direction. Enter ghost. Okay? Now, some directors like to have it so the ghost doesn't enter. Hamlet sees a shadow. And so that the audience doesn't hear the ghost. Why? Because they want it to be all in Hamlet's head. Hamlet, ecstasy? This isn't ecstasy. Come here, take my pulse. My pulse is beating just like yours. You would think, as much as Hamlet has been, I'll use this term advisedly, ranting, his pulse would be a little bit elevated. Okay? He says, no. You don't get to think I'm crazy. Because if she thinks he's crazy, then what does that do for everything he just told her? Yeah, I don't need to pay any attention to that. He says, no. Mother, for love of grace, lay not that flattering unction to your soul. Unction, that healing ointment. Don't think I'm crazy can absolve you of your wrongdoing. All right? That not your trespass, but my madness speaks. It will but skin and film the ulcerous place, whilst rank corruption mining all within infects unseen. If you think I'm crazy, what will that do? That'll be like a scab over your wound. But your wound will what? Eat from within. What's Hamlet want for his mother? Does he simply want her to stop sleeping with Claudius? I mean, yeah, he does want that. But that's not all. He wants what for her? Healing. He wants her to be whole. Okay? He wants her to be healthy. Not only physically, spiritually. So, he says, confess yourself to heaven. Counselors will say, in order for you to overcome something, like the 12-step program, whether it's for Alcoholics Anonymous or drugs or whatever, what must you first do? Admit you have a problem. That's the confession part. You've got to admit it. Confess yourself to heaven. Repent what's past. That is, what does the word repent literally mean? Does it mean feel sorry for? It means turn around. Change your direction. You've been going this direction in the past, the enseamed bed. Go away from there. Go the other direction. Okay? Avoid what is to come. And do not spread the compost on the weeds to make them rancor. Stop doing what you've been doing. She's in my next class. Forgive me this my virtue, for in the fatness of these pursy times, virtue itself. Hamlet, thou hast cleft my heart in twain. You took that blunt purpose, kind of, that the ghost mentioned, whetted it, sharpened it, and psh, Hamlet says, good, good. Why? I told my Shakespeare students, not my Shakespeare students, my Brit Lit 1 students, if you're an English major, and I know most of you, or all of you probably aren't English majors, but if you are an English major, you got to know the Bible. You got to know the Bible really, really well, especially if you're reading anything in the English language from 500 AD up to 1900 AD. Why? Because it fills an awful lot of the literature with ideas, with images, with stories, and they allude to the Bible all the time. When Hamlet says, throw away the worser part of it, she says, thou hast cleft my heart in twain. David, in the Psalms, Psalm 50, 51, depending on which version of the Bible you have, says, a broken and contrite heart, O God, thou wilt not despise. Broken. Cleft in two. So, and live the purer with the other half. Get rid of the filthy part. Keep the healthy part. Good night. But he doesn't leave. Good night. But go not to my uncle's bed. Assume a virtue if you have it not. A virtue. Virtue has a variety of meanings. One of them is simply power to do something. But here, it's power to do what? Something virtuous, something pure, something good, something noble. So, assume a virtue even if you don't have it. Pretend to be virtuous even if you're not. Okay? Well, we would call that what today? If somebody pretended to be virtuous who wasn't really, should I go there? No. We would call that person a hypocrite. Okay? Hamlet's not only saying, however, put on the clothing of virtue. Listen to what he says. That monster custom who all sense doth eat. Sense. This is kind of rational will. It's in addition to the physical senses, the five senses. Custom, habit. He says, takes over one's senses. He's talking about the passions, kind of a thing. Overeating, all that kind of stuff. Of habits, devil is angel yet in this. That is, lost my place. Custom can be devilish in that we can form bad habits, right? And those bad habits we're often not even consciously aware of. And even when we are consciously aware of, can you consciously just say, well, I'm not going to do that anymore? I've known only one person in my life who woke up one morning and said, I'm not going to smoke anymore, and never touched another cigarette in his life. And he was in his late 50s when he'd done that. And he started smoking when he was, I think he said, 12 years old. He just woke up and said, I'm done. And stopped. Okay? Hamlet is saying that those customs become kind of agents, servants, etc. of the devil. Except in this instance, custom, habit, can have an angelic side. How so? It's yet angel in this, that to the use of actions fair and good, he he likewise gives a frock or livery. Livery, like a uniform. So, if most of your life is full of bad habits and stuff, Hamlet is suggesting, if you turn one thing and you start working on one quote-unquote good habit, what will eventually happen? Anybody in here who has ever participated in an athletic event, a sport on a team, or has had to act, or learned a piece of music, learned how to play the piano or flute or something, what do you have to do? You got to practice. Because if you don't practice, you don't what? You don't improve. You don't sit down at the piano unless you're a child prodigy, or a savant. That is, it's just innate. You don't sit down at a piano and immediately play, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. There are some people who can do that. They can literally, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, hear the music, sit down, and play it. It's not fair. Okay? Most of us, you start off with what? Once you learn the keys, chopsticks. Bend. Okay? And some of us, after years. Hamlet, you practice it. You practice a virtue, even though you're not virtuous. And what happens? It aptly is put on. Refrain tonight. Don't have sex with Claudius tonight. And what will that do for tomorrow? It'll make it that much easier. How much easier? Not a lot. Okay? But it'll make it a little bit. Drink one less, put it today's language. Drink one fewer Cokes today. And it'll make it easier to drink less tomorrow. Or not Coke, Have one less beer today. One fewer beer today. 24 in a day. Have 23. It'll make it easier tomorrow to only do 22, Refrain tonight, and that shall lend a kind of easiness to the next abstinence. The next more easy. For use almost can change the stamp of nature. The stamp of nature, Shakespeare is talking there about the Western Christian idea of original sin. From Adam and Eve on, everyone is born with a sinful disposition. Hamlet is saying, but you can almost erase that. How? By being good. Almost. You can't wipe it out entirely, but you can almost. And either the devil or throw him out with wondrous potency. Once more, good night. And when you are desirous to be blessed, I will blessing beg of you. Points to Polonius. I do repent. Never meant to kill him. Never meant to harm him. But heaven hath pleased it so to punish me with this, and this with me. Hamlet's kind of saying, that was God's will. And I will be punished for this. Okay? And he was punished by me. Hamlet is suggesting I am kind of like the angel of death for the Egyptians. Bear in mind, the angel of death is God's servant. Even Satan is God's servant. Look at the book of Job. Book of Job opens kind of with a prologue. And the prologue is, God is up in heaven, and the sons of God are coming before him, the angels. And they're giving an account for what they do. And there comes Satan. And God's like, so Satan, what you up to? Walking around the world, roaring like a lion, devouring. So, you notice Job? One of the interesting things about that book is God brings Job to Satan's attention. Job's living fat, dumb, and happy. I mean, he's got everything going for him. He's Jeff Bezos. He's the richest man in the world. He's got tons of kids, like 12 or 13 sons and 7 daughters. Okay? And God says, look at this guy. Yeah, well, he wouldn't love you if you took everything. Go ahead, take everything away from him. Satan does. He comes back. Yeah, well, he wouldn't still serve you if you'd let me touch him. Okay, you could kill his family. You could touch him with illness, but you can't kill him. Okay? Read the rest of Job for yourself to figure out what happens. So, he says, I must be their scourge and minister. Minister. He's both scourge and minister. Not minister preacher. Minister, agent of God. Okay? One more word, he says. She says, what should I do? What is it? Let the bloat king tempt you again to bed. Not this by no means that I bid you do. Let the bloat king tempt you again to bed, pinch wanton on your cheek, call you his mouse, let him for a pair of reachy kisses or paddling in your neck with his damn fingers, make you to ravel all this. In other words, don't tell the king anything that we've talked about. Okay? Especially which part? I'm the scourge of God. Because what has Hamlet kind of said there? Claudius's days are numbered. She goes, okay, I won't. So, Hamlet, before he walks out, says, I'm going to England, She goes, oh yeah, I forgot all about that. What does Hamlet tell us he knows? There's letters sealed, line 203. And my two schoolfellows, whom I will trust as I will adders fanged. I'm going to trust Rosencrantz and Guildenstern like I would an eastern diamondback rattlesnake. Yeah, not really. They bear the mandate. They must sweep my way and marshal me to knavery. That is, marshal me. Like when you marshal your troops, what are you doing? You're getting them all in order. You're setting them up for what? To launch the battle. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, he says, are going to marshal me, prepare me for knavery. What's he mean by knavery? Well, he's going to tell us in the next couple lines. Let it work. Let him go ahead. For 'tis the sport to have the engineer hoist with his own petard. The engineer, he's talking about blasting works. The demolitions expert. What's going to happen? Boom! They're going to blow themselves up. Hamlet is telling us. And it shall go hard, but I will delve 1 yard below their minds and blow them at the moon. Wow, you don't want to be Hamlet's friend. Or, you don't want to be Hamlet's pretend friend. Because he does have a good friend, right? Who is it? Horatio. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? What kind of friends are they?
Backstabbers.
Louder?
Backstabbers.
Backstabbers. We have this phrase, fair weather friends. What are they more concerned about? Pleasing the king. Okay. So he takes Polonius away. We get Act 4. King and queen come in, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And King says, so, Gertrude, how's Hamlet feeling? And she says, mad as the sea and the wind. When both contend, blah, 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 blah. He killed Polonius. Oh, heavy deed. It had been with us had we been there. And I can't can't help but imagine, if I were directing this, Gertrude's got to just keep a straight face. Not in the sense that she's about ready to burst out laughing, but straight, poker face. She can't let on. You're right, man, because he really wants to kill you. Okay? So he says, where is he gone? To take the body he hath killed. So he says, okay, all right, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern, you gotta get him, you gotta leave. So go find him so we can find the body. Scene 2. Hamlet comes in and he says, safely stowed. That is, he's taking care of Polonius' body. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come in. They ask him, where's the body? Line 4, Hamlet compounded it with dust, whereto 'tis kin. Why? Because from dust thou art, and to dust shalt thou return, God tells Adam. Tell us where it is so we can bear it to the chapel. Don't believe it. Don't believe what? That I can keep your count. He kind of starts punning with them. So, Rosencrantz, line 20. My lord, you must tell us where the body is and go with us to the king. Hamlet, the body is with the king, but the king is not with the body. The king is the thing. Hamlet is playing upon, Hamlet/Shakespeare, is playing upon this idea called the king's two bodies. Okay? One, which is the king's physical body, and 2, the body of state. At the beginning of the play, when the guys see dead Hamlet Sr., how do they refer to him? Old Denmark. And then they talk about young Norway. That's the body of state. Okay. The king represents the entire body. In some of her letters, Queen Elizabeth I refers to herself as Britannia. She is Britain. Okay? So, the body is with the king. That's this. The body of state is with the king. But the king is not with the body. Polonius' body. But he's also saying the king is not with this. Why? Because he's acted in contra to the body. He's acted against the body. How? By killing the previous king. So, scene 3, another room. King comes in, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and the others come in. The king says, where is he? So they bring Hamlet. And the king asks, line 18 or so, where's Polonius? Come on, Hamlet. Why is he so concerned? Well, we don't know how much time has passed. Maybe the night has passed. What's going to start happening pretty soon? Decay. Polonius is going to start to stink. They don't want to find the stink in the castle. Where's Polonius? At supper. Whoosh. At supper? Where? Not where he eats, but where it is eaten. A certain convocation of politic worms are e'en at. E'en is even. Your worm, and I'm going to talk about this little passage in a minute and probably take much longer than we have time for. Your worm is your only emperor for diet. We fat all creatures else to fat us, and we fat ourselves from maggots. Your fat king and your lean beggar is but variable service. 2 dishes, but to 1 table. That's the end. Okay? I could do an entire class. I could probably do an entire 2 classes just on those 5 lines. Because Shakespeare has crammed so much there. Okay? So, not where he eats, but where it's eaten, right? Because what happens when the body starts to decay? We have already talked about they're thinking the sun does what? It impregnates the carcass with the spawn of maggots, and the maggots come up. Where he's at supper for what? For the worms. Not his supper, it's the worm supper. That's one thing. A certain convocation of politic worms are even at it. In 1521, an event happened called the Diet of Worms. W-U-R-M-S. Okay. Spelled diet, but it's pronounced diet. Well, what was the Diet of Worms? Back up for a moment. What happened? Let's see if any of you know. On that date, October 31st, 1517. It's one of the most important dates in human history. It's the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. That's the date that Martin Luther, not King, Martin Luther, nailed 95 theses to the church door in, anybody know? It's in the play. Wittenberg. The very same town that Hamlet attends university at. Martin Luther was an Augustinian monk, all right, which is a pretty severe, one of the severe orders of monks, beating themselves on the backs and, self-flagellation kind of stuff. So, he nails these 95 theses. Yeah, this will probably take the rest of the class. He nails these 95 theses to the church door because there are problems in the church that he sees. There are corruptions in the church. And the 95 theses are exactly what a thesis is when you have a thesis for a paper. What is a thesis? Central argument. That's it. These are 95 arguments. He wants people to debate with him. This is not Martin Luther saying, the hell with the Roman Catholic Church. We got to start over. We got to start a reformation. Not it. He wants to work within the confines of the church and just get away what's rotten. Okay? 1521, the Holy Roman Emperor calls the Diet of Worms. And at the Diet of Worms, Luther is, quote unquote, asked to attend. Okay? Being a subject of the Holy Roman Empire, that's not really a request. That's like when the FBI asked you to come down to their offices to be interrogated. Okay? And same kind of rules apply, Just as you can't lie to the FBI, it's a federal offense. Even if it's minor. If you say you're born on 10/31/1517 and you were born on 10/30, that's a lie. That's perjury. That's a federal offense. You could go to jail just for that, even as minor as it is. Okay? So he's asked to attend, but before he goes, he secures from the authorities what's called safe passage to and from. That is, I'll come, but you have to guarantee that nothing will happen to me on my way there, while I'm there, or when I leave. Nobody will arrest me. Nobody will throw me in jail. Nobody will kidnap. He gets that grant. Okay? So he goes. He thinks he's finally going to get the opportunity to debate his 95 theses. This is going to be a meeting not with him and the Holy Roman Emperor, but him and church authorities. Okay? Well, in the meantime, because this is 4 years later, Luther hasn't just been sitting there revising the 95 Theses. He's been writing. He's been writing little pamphlets on various ideas in these theses. He gets there, and he is surprised to find out that when he gets to the Diet of Worms, there's like a table there, and on that table is everything he has written. Beginning from the 95 Theses to all the pamphlets, all the little quote-unquote newspaper articles, etc. It's all just stacked there. And he is told one thing. You don't get to debate this. Take it all back. Everything. Say, oops, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Now that's not what he went to do. Okay? So, according to one of his biographers, Luther said, you got to give me 24 hours. I got to pray about this. Fine, you can have 24 hours. And he comes back the next morning and he says, unless it can be proven to me in Holy Scripture, I can't remember the other thing, or by my conscience, maybe it's reason. Holy Scripture, reason, or by my conscience. Here I stand, that is, let's use this as an example of his works. Here I stand, I can do no other. In other words, nope, I'm right. The church is wrong on all of these counts. Okay? See ya. He leaves and keeps writing, starts translating the Bible from Latin into everyday, ordinary German, his particular dialect, for the purpose so that everybody could read the Bible. Because one of the things Luther had problems with was, why is there a priest between me and God? When Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And Paul said, there's one mediator between God and man, Jesus Christ, etc. Not one and then another one and another one and another one and such. Okay? And, the Protestant Reformation just spread like fire. So that now there are approximately, I think the last time I saw a statistic, there are approximately 22,000 Protestant denominations. So you start off with, Christ and the Apostles, the church. And then eventually you get to Luther's time, the Roman Catholic Church, you have the Eastern Orthodox Church, and then from the Roman Catholic Church, Protestantism, and it's like shattering those windows, okay? So, when Hamlet says, a certain convocation of politic worms are e'en at him, every scholar takes that to be Shakespeare alluding to this. Because a diet is a convocation. Like if your first semester MTSU, if you weren't a transfer student, you attended convocation, the coming together, okay, of all the students and such. And you got a footnote down there about the Diet of Worms. Your worm is your only emperor for, now notice Shakespeare playing on the word. This one's not diet, not a meeting, but diet, eating. Your worm is your only emperor for diet. We fat all creatures, else to fat us. Right? If you're a meat eater, what do? You fatten up those cows. You fatten up those pigs. You fatten up those chickens. To do what? To fatten you. Okay? And we fat ourselves for what purpose? To fatten maggots. Is that the meaning of life? You live and then you become maggot fodder? Your fat king and your lean beggar is but variable service. In other words, one's steak and potatoes, one's roast beef. But they're the same thing. Now, what has Hamlet just done with the social strata of society? The king and the emperor are what? No better, no greater, no different than the poor homeless guy who lives under the bridge. That's dangerous language in Shakespeare's day. 2 dishes, but to 1 table. What's the 1 table? He means it both literally and metaphorically. table, like a table for the maggots to eat upon. What else? Death. That's the end. The end there, where he says, that's the end. End there means two things. One, the completion, the finality. The other, that's the purpose. This bottle has two ends, right? You could say top, bottom, beginning, end. What's its other end? To hold liquid. That's its purpose. We talk about something is a means to an ends. The end there doesn't mean its completion. It means the purpose. Okay? The king, alas, alas. Why? Because he thinks Hamlet's completely crazy? No. Why does the king say, alas, alas? He just said I'm like a beggar. What does Donald Trump do when somebody, belittles him? He fires back. Why? Because his quote-unquote dignity has been maligned. The king's dignity, he can't even go beyond just alas, alas. He says, I am the same as a bum. Hamlet, a man may fish with the worm that hath eat up a king. Okay, we've seen worms, maggots before. Guess what? Act 5, we're going to begin that whole act with a grave digging scene. And Hamlet's going to be talking again about dirt and kings and worms and such. So, a man may fish with the worm that hath eaten of a king. Because what do you do with dead kings? You put them in the ground. They didn't have, like we have today, cement caskets. Utterly ridiculous. Why put a dead body in something cement? What are you preserving it for? Okay, you don't want them to break out. There is actually in the Orthodox Christian burial service, I'm Orthodox Christian, like Russian, Greek, etc. There is a passage in the Orthodox Christian service when, just before the casket is lowered into the ground, the priest will come up and with the butt of a cross will go, sorry, this casket is sealed. And he does it 3 times until the day of judgment. It's thought that that particular part of the ritual came about because the Greeks don't do this and the Arabs don't do this. The Russians do this. The Eastern kind of Slavic Orthodox do this because of the belief in Romania and Albania and Bulgaria and Russia in what? The dead coming up out of their graves. And so you seal that sucker good, right? So, a man may fish with the worm that hath eaten of a king. Yeah, that's theoretically possible. And eat of the fish that hath fed of that worm. So, any of you having fish today, you might eat somebody. That's his point. Well, where do you get this idea from? Part of this comes from Pythagoras, the guy who came up with the Pythagorean theorem for geometry, who also believed in the transmigration of souls. That when you die, if you've not lived a good life, Hinduism has some of this. If you haven't lived a good life, what can happen to you? You might not rise up on the next level in reincarnation. You may go down a level. And so you might end up in the body of a cow. Which is why Pythagoras was a vegetarian. What dost thou mean? Claudius, he doesn't get it. Nothing but to show you how a king may go a progress through the guts of a beggar. How the king may go a progress through the guts of a beggar. A king going on a progress, Shakespeare's day, King James, who becomes King James I of England, will do this in 1604, 1605, shortly after he becomes king. It means to take a tour of your kingdom. Not a tour you're seeing the sights, but a tour you are going and you're kind of establishing your authority throughout the kingdom. So that's the idea of a progress. But look where it's going. Nothing but to show you a king may go a progress through the guts of a beggar. Well, what goes through the guts of a beggar? Or anybody else for that matter? It comes in here, right? It comes down here, and then you expel it. In other words, a king may be a piece of shit. That's what Hamlet is saying. Where's Polonius? In other words, kings, I think the king got that part. Where's Polonius? In heaven. Well, that's generous of him. Send thither to see. Notice, send. Get somebody else to go and find out. If your messenger find him not there, seek him in the other place yourself. Now, the other place doesn't mean purgatory. Send, I don't know, Laertes to find his father in heaven. Why? Because then Laertes will be reunited with Polonius in heaven. And if he doesn't find them there, then you go to hell yourself. But if indeed you find him not within this month, go up the stairs to the lobby. There he is. So, the king goes, Hamlet, you got to go to England. Yay, for England. Aye, Hamlet, good. So is it if thou knewest our purposes. And Hamlet's just kind of standing there, I think, going, you stupid old damn fool. So, everybody leaves but the king. And the king tells us what? Hamlet, you're going to get killed when you get to England. He sent a letter to, as he calls it, England, that is the king of England, saying what's going to happen to him. Okay? So, scene 4, we're at a plain in, we don't have time. We'll pick up with scene 4. And we might be able to finish on Monday. More than likely, it'll be Wednesday.